underneath, you see we already had the onboarding session in April, followed by the working group 1. And currently we're on the second working group. One more working group remaining after this one for the 3rd of July. And then we have the SEMIC conference in 2025. 25th to the 26th of November.
And that one is going to be in Denmark, right?
In Denmark, indeed, yeah. In Denmark, yes.
So it would be great to be able to see you all in Denmark. Yeah,
indeed. Communications channels haven't been changed, so these are the online meetings. We have the physical meeting during the conference in Denmark. Our core discussions you can find in the GitHub. They're documented there, the issues. And we have a chat channel on Matrix. And if you would like to follow up on the next working groups or receive reports, keep up to date, please leave your email address in the chat if you haven't done so before. All right, then we have a quick look at the agenda. Welcoming is already done. Tour de table, I think we can skip that part as well. That was a nice question of you, Peter, to just check who's new or not. Most of them were already here. So we'll immediately go to the reminder. We'll have a recap on the process and goals of the LDES standardization track. And after that, we'll have a look at the pull requests. Requests with regard to the transactions and the retention policies, followed by a discussion on the time step path and other proposed properties used in LDES. And then we'll end with a glance towards the following workshop as well. All right, then I'll leave the floor to you, Peter.
All right, thank you very much. A quick reminder of what the goal is in 2025. So we had a specification that was more like a rough draft of a couple of terms in the LDES vocabulary. I think we need to do more normative work to make sure that that it's clear what is expected from a client, and that client perspective, or even a little bit broader, the consumer perspective, is at the core of what we're going to do, what we did last time, and what we're going to do today as well. We are working on the spec at w3id.org/LDES/specification, and we're working on a consumer-oriented, backwards compatible, stable release that this way will become more testable as well. And we also have the ambition to, by SEMIC 2025, to be able to release a server primer, because of course, if we are really going to base it on a consumer-oriented specification, then of course it becomes more tricky to understand from that specification how you should implement a server, or what is expected from you as a server. However, by really focusing on the consumer-oriented part, I believe, and I'm convinced, that we will be able to give more freedom to server implementers, that we will make it more easy to be implemented in different domains, but that will require different kinds of documentations for which we can write a server primer that will be a derivative of the consumer-oriented primer, basically. Good. Although, yeah, we said in workshop 3 we're going to focus on the server primer. I'm already softening that a little bit, because I see the backlog of work and discussions that we still need to have, that will require maybe a bit of shift, in which in workshop 3 we will most certainly still be talking about some pull requests on the LDES specification itself. There's a question in the chat from Ranko. Ranko, maybe you can immediately speak up, and then people hear a different voice as well and see a different face as well.
Hi, I'm trying to, yeah, okay, should work. Hi, everybody. Yeah, the question was really on, I'm disappearing now. What we will be using as a first version number, is it the 1.0, etc.? We'll be using semantic versioning. Reason why I'm asking is because I'm working on certain, we'll say, conformance things, and yeah, well, I have to base myself on something, so it needs to be kind of stable. Well, stable needs to be kind of defined what we're actually checking against, and that's why. And it doesn't have to be right now, but you know, at some point in time, we will have to say, okay, cut off. This is it. This is version 1.0 or 0.1 or whatever you want to call it. It makes it easier to refer. Basically, that's my point.
Yeah. So there's certainly something that a discussion that I've opened in the tree specification at the W3C community group, in which I said, like, look, if LDES is going to refer to this specification, it needs to be stable. So while also still allowing room for improvements and for additions as well, of course. But indeed, as you said, it needs to be able to be frozen. At this point, the strategy is to just make GitHub releases, and to then just say, look, at this moment there was a specific new version published, but there's no plan for a version number, because that's what you ask, right? Is it possible to have a LDES 1.0 for example? I don't know. Like, what would be your suggestion? And maybe I can open the discussion to the rest of the group. What would be your recommendations? But yeah, Ranko?
Yeah, the semantic version would be great. So basically, if we have a specification, we create the first release, version 1.0, whatever, and we say, okay, we define and say, okay, this is it. We have a cutoff point. And then at some point in time, you will have either new things you add, and you create a new release as you do in software, or you will have some breaking change, and then you have to bump up your major number, something like that, so that people know, okay, this specification is backwards compatible with the previous one, or it's not backwards compatible. If it's not backwards compatible, it'll be a major upgrade, a major version number, etc., etc. We only had a small typo in the documentation. Okay, it's a patch version. I mean, there's a parallel in software development, and I think we should really start doing that. Because if I start creating, some kind of a test suite for LDES or for tree, well, in that case, I need to be able to refer to it, and preferably not by date, because that kind of makes it really hard to understand what the semantic meaning is behind it. And since LinkedIn is all about semantics, I think we should just be semantic about versioning as well. That was
you're hitting us in our soft spots. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, of course I am, Peter. What did you expect? What did you expect?
Yeah.
No, that's basically it. So basically, we need to have something we can build upon, because people will be building software on top of this. People will be building test suites on top of this. It needs to be more or less formalized. I'm not saying stable, because stable is a bad term, but it needs to be formalized. What you're testing against, what you're implementing against.
Yeah.
Don't need an answer right now. Let's just discuss this and see how we can do this, so that we solve the problem of predictability in a certain sense.
Is there an issue open about this in the LDES repository?
No, but it's also true for tree, and first we have to do it for tree, and then you can do it for LDES, because you're basing yourself on another spec, so that one needs to be, some kind of a semantic meaning as well. So let's do that for tree first, and then for LDES afterwards.
Okay. Although I think for LDES, I think we might also want to embed this then in the governance document. I'm looking at Isabeau maybe. Is this something that we had planned, like in order to change the spec? What will be the required thing afterwards? That we then bump a version number, or what's? Did we already have ideas in the governance document on that?
No, not that concrete. No.
Yeah. Because Natasha.
If I can say, since this is one of the SEMIC assets, we need to be consistent and follow the same process. So Yeah. This will be in the governance, which will be shared. As soon as we finalize the governance document, we will share and present it to all involved stakeholders and working group members and people that participate in the standardization. But we will follow a similar process as we are doing in the other space, like semantic versioning and for the new releases, etc. But it will be detailed.
Yeah, and then also, of course, we will need to make historic versions available as well. Like at this moment, we just update the last version, and we only have the last version online. So we will need a way to to refer to older versions.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to hijack the meeting. So
no worries.
continue.
It's a very good point. It's a discussion I want to have. So it's yeah. Julian, you still had a question on how it is handled in DKTP. Maybe that's I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what Natasha just said. So to follow the same approach, but I don't know if they actually follow semantic versioning. I don't recall DKTP version 1 or 2 or 1.5 or something like this.
Yeah. Jitse, maybe?
Yeah, it does follow semantic versioning in principle, although I'm not sure if it checks all of the boxes that are expected, but at least it uses the minor bug fix and major release at least. But then, yeah, if you go to like the specific requirements for semantic versioning, I don't know if it checks all of those boxes, but at least in principle, it follows the ID. So yeah, for example, now we have a 3.0.1 for DKDP, which is a bug fix release.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and I think the major releases also just follow the W3C version numbers,
yes,
right? Because
that's correct.
Yeah. Which is also interesting that in DCAT and DKTP you also have something similar like we have with 3 and then LDES, although not entirely the same because we have a lot more terms in specific to LDES, but there's a parallel to be drawn there as well, I think. Good. What we will not do in this trajectory, but what we will be able to pick up as a community hereafter is that from the moment that there's a domain-specific implementation of LDES, we really want to stimulate the fact that that you write implementation reports. So we want to grow to a situation where on this link we go towards for every domain or even multiple implementation reports per domain, so that other people can understand the ideas that were applied there, and that you can also have your your implementation represented over there. And then something else we would also be able to do is something that Ranko already hinted towards is the fact that we can have compliance reports, not only for the server, but we can also have compliance reports for clients. So from the moment that clients implement it, we can really look through the spec and create test cases of things that need to be able to work. Good. So in 2025, we have this trajectory. We said that we would have or that we would do 3 working groups over here. I'm already steering a little bit or like hinting maybe towards an unofficial working group that we could do somewhere in September to discuss the server primer, maybe, because I already see that that today we will not be able to finalize the LDES specification or the ambitions that we wanted to reach with the LDES specification today, and it would be very useful that we can use this 3rd of July to further discuss the things that we will discuss today. Good. How will we reach consensus? So the idea is that that's always the beforehand, before the meetings, you can do a lot of work by commenting on the issues and the pull requests. And then during the calls, we can either accept and merge, either we can document some conditions before acceptance, either we can close the pull request entirely. So the workshop topics, and this is already a little bit reworked. So in the first workshop, we were going to restructure the spec. This is done. This is now a consumer-oriented spec, for which I'm really happy. This raises the quality a lot, the testability a lot, and so on. In workshop 2, which is today, the idea is to now discuss what we weren't able to fully discuss anymore in the previous workshop, which is about the introduction of transactions. We will discuss retention policies. We will also introduce versioning and envelopes. And we'll also talk about the timestamp path issue today. In workshop 3, then this is what we will push from workshop 2 to workshop 3. Is we would discuss the iteration algorithm across the search tree. Yeah. Good. Then. Yeah, and of course, the workshop 3 also start discussing that that server primer, but it just managing expectations here. The server primer won't be ready by the 3rd of July if we don't want everyone to end up in a burnout that is working at this moment on these specifications. Good. Today's meeting is all about the consumer perspective, which means that we will not use must should may for things that are important for the server. We will only use must should may for the client perspective. And then from the moment that that we will start writing the server primer, then we can again use must should may for the server, but that will solely depend on what the client has implemented. If the client did not implement something, yeah, then it's useless that a server describes it, or it's yeah. So the server should basically just be a derived form of the client based spec. And I think we could write this in we could write a lot of text on possible best practices there. Open issues that we want to discuss today. Just last minute before the meeting, there was a minor issues pull request opened on fixing some grammar mistakes and typos and so on the current version. Thanks for that, Iban. Then I see that there's questions in the chat. Maybe I'll quickly stop for a moment and go to these. Shuying, LDES Server Implementation Guide for Developers. Is this the official implementation guide for reference? This is something a colleague of us started to write, but it's not yet the official one, Shuying. But it's already a useful document, of course. But we can look at this to start writing, or to steal ideas from to build the server primer. So there's certainly not the official implementation guide. So open issues we want to discuss today, the minor pull request, then a short word about UML diagrams. Then we'll also talk about the event source, although yeah, I forgot whether I removed that last minute or not, but yeah, okay. Then the retention policies. So there's a new rework of the retention policies that is being proposed. We'll introduce transactions. We'll continue the discussion from last week there. And then we'll start discussing the timestamp path, for which a big summarizing issue was opened in issue 76. And then there are also some proposals of an LDES immutable to flag a node as immutable, and an LDES expires to maybe indicate that the client must refetch a certain node at a certain time. Good. Are there any questions about this so far? Because then we can just continue and dive into the actual contents. All right. So we have a minor issue pull request here. which I shared the link, but I'm also sharing my screen about this at this moment. Does someone want to say something? I hear some noise.
See that Arne has raised his hand.
I have.
Okay. Apologies. Yeah.
No problem. I have a question. I find it peculiar. We start with the client specification.
Yeah.
It's sort of, you have a feeling the client will do whatever the server can offer, and if we don't have a server specification, it's a bit hard to say what the client should or can or will do.
I see it as the opposite, Arne, in that sense that if we want to build ecosystems in which clients can work across a lot of different servers, we need to embrace the fact that these servers are not going to be built according to one very specific rigid structure, and we must document how clients will behave if they see a certain pattern from a server. If we see a certain pattern from a server, I know, okay, my client can recognize this and can work with this without the client per se needing to understand every triple on that server. It might be that there's only a follow-up step, or after a couple of reuse steps, that only then everything is fully understood. So I think if we want to go towards an API ecosystem that scales across many servers, that we first and foremost must describe the client patterns, the patterns that clients can understand, so that then servers can say, okay, so I'm going to do this, in order for that client to be able to understand that it can go much quicker through the structure, or that it can follow a next page, and so on. So that was the idea to really have the consumer-oriented spec. Before that, we were torn between consumer and server. So now we decided to say, okay, no, we want to have a clear spec for the consumer perspective, and that's what we're doing today.
Okay.
Good. So we go to the minor fixes over here. Eben, I don't know if you want to say something about this, because it's your work.
It's just some grammar fixes and clarifications. I think, I don't know if I can really summarize it. Other than that,
yeah. But basically using this instead of the full linked data event stream specification referred to as nicer reference here. What entity? It's better grammar in general, I think. So the question is, can we merge this? 4 instead of 3. I know what I did there, so but indeed there are 3 types of retention policies, and so on. So I already went through the pull request and approved it. So the question is, can we merge this, or does someone still want to have a look before we finally merge this?
I would say, if there are no objections.
Good. Arne, you still have your hand raised, or you didn't lower it? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, agree to merge. Then I'm very happy to say that we already did some work, and we will have published a new LDES version today. So that's very nice, of course. Good. Yeah, and then there are a couple of issues that I said that we were going to discuss this time, but that we will postpone to next time. These are these issues, but are good. The UML diagram. So that was a comment from last time as well. I introduced some images that I drew myself instead of automatically generating them, or using a proper UML tool, such as actually is required by the SEMIC style guide. And how dare I not use the SEMIC style guide? I apologize for that. But we are still so we still don't today will not present you the UML diagrams, for the simple reason that it's still under discussion about the workflow that we're going to put in LDES, and also because I'm also a little bit a annoying voice in that situation, because I don't want to use enterprise architect here. So I'm also so like the I want to have a more lightweight pipeline to be able to generate this. And yeah, we still see some options here. Is either generates the vocabulary, the UML, and the shackle shapes, all three, from something like LinkML, which is a different specification, is something we have under discussion. Or a second thing is just manually author the vocabulary and the shackle shapes, and then generate the UML from the shackle that we will have. There are tools to automatically generate the UML from that. And then a third thing is to also draw the UML manually, but use yet another tool from that. Could be even very lightweight, like Mermaid there, or Draw.io, something like that. But this is what we are currently discussing. We'll discuss that in the editorial team, and we'll come with an answer. But this should be ready by the launch. So certainly for the ones that opened that issue, and that mentioned it, we thank you a lot for the suggestion. We're on top of it. We didn't ignore your suggestion there. We are going to handle this. Good. The next thing is on transactions, and that main discussion happened in this issue. And that the main idea there, and I think multiple use cases already popped up, but one use case would, for example, be for DKTP feeds, in which you can add in your linked data event stream, you can there add an update of a data set. But if that data set immediately also introduces a distribution, and these things are linked, then maybe you want to wait to show the fact that the data set has been added. You want to wait to show that to your end user from the moment that that distribution has also been added. So this need for transactions became apparent. We want to make sure that you can let the consumer wait until the full transaction is ended in order to process the series of event stream members there. So that's the idea. We in the issue we drafted a simplistic approach, and apparently people were happy with the simplistic approach there. And the idea is to introduce 3 additional properties on top of an LDES event stream that follow the same idea as what we do now with, for example, the version of path. So we have or the timestamp path even. We point at a specific property inside the member that can indicate something to the client. So we are tending to really make LDES a specification over here that really points at things within the member that then that can help you to achieve a certain consumer functionality. So the properties that we propose to introduce here is the transaction path, pointing at so that's a shackle property path that points at an object that denotes a string or an integer or maybe an IRI that can be used to identify that transaction. And then we have 2 properties that can indicate whether that transaction has been finalized or not. Of course, we're only interested in when it is the trigger for flagging it as finalized. And there, the idea is that we would use 2 properties. One transaction finalized path to show that, okay, what's the path to the property that indicates that it has finalized. And then we also allow setting a transaction finalized object, so what the object needs to be equal to in order for the transaction to be finalized. Because I would let this make this default to true, basically, because that way you can still change it. For example, it could be that someone implemented something like transaction states as the path, and that the transaction state then has something like in progress and then committed or finalized or something like that as a named node or an IRI. So this then also becomes supported by this style of design, and it also fits well with how we tackled the rest of the LDES design decisions so far. Good. That's how we would propose transactions in the spec. And yeah, when talking about transactions, we also immediately talk about or immediately wanted to write a text about versioning in the spec as well. And when we talk about versioning, well, there are multiple levels that we could go towards. So we could just say, we have a version of something, for example, by using the DC terms as version of, or by using activity streams object over here, so that we know what the IRI is of the real world object that we're changing with this thing. For example, over here we have a create activity of this dataset 1, and then the payload of this thing is really the first version of this thing. However, you could also say you might want to indicate create, update, and delete semantics inside your system. I think we have been using activity streams in a couple of implementations. We also have been using just DC terms semantics in others. We have been using Provo in others. We have been using Zensosa, although there you cannot delete anything. And there are multiple things. There are multiple ways of multiple vocabularies basically that would do this, would be able to do this. So also here we propose to use the path and object design pattern here, so that we can point through shackle paths, can point towards specific aspects of the versioning, so that a consumer can autonomously understand what it needs to do with an update of the with an update of a specific version. Good.
There's a question from Arne, Peter.
Yeah, Arne.
If you have me, sorry. In the previous slide with the transactions, you have a node that can identify a transaction, presumably by a string or something. That makes me feel that transactions can be interleaved, so multiple transactions can be running, right?
True.
So shouldn't then the finalization path specify which transaction is finalized or which one has ended at this point?
Yeah, so that will also happen as you will then see that in the member itself, you will also get you will get both the transaction identifier and the fact that it is finalized or not. So I think over here I have an example. So over here you would be able to see that I have an example vocabulary here that says transaction 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the transaction has ended is set to true over here. Yeah. So this is an idea that combines all of this, specifically for the example of DKTP feeds here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Yeah, I see Ranko, you had a question as well in the chat.
Yes, but it was, I think, both by Sander and Julian, it was confirmed that this is indeed the case.
Yeah.
So we're talking about transactions from the source system, which then go to the server, and the server will just hand them over to the client, so that let's say at the destination system, you know which things belong together. That's basically it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just clarifying for myself and maybe for the rest of the group what the purpose is.
Maybe
Thanks.
I'm not totally sure yet. Maybe this example confuses me a little bit. Let's say you have 2 or 3 transactions running, right? And now in your example, the event 2 on the bottom says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is ended, right?
Yeah.
How would you say then that another transaction at this point started?
It would be started by another member.
So you cannot have in the same event another transaction starting.
So a transaction, so one member basically, or one event, is part of one transaction. So this is the limitation. So that indeed that we have, so that one event can only be part of one transaction.
Okay, now I get it. Thank you.
Does that make, yeah? Is that something? Do use cases exist like that, where actually events are part of multiple transactions at the same time?
I wasn't totally understanding exactly how transactions sort of work. That's maybe my confusion. Yeah.
Okay. Good. And also in the pull request at this moment, I included some text on envelopes because we're talking about versioning here. And over here now we have some you could say envelope data, which is over here saying that it's the create, saying that there's a transaction added to it, and so on. And then we also have some payload data over here. So we so for the first time now we added a little bit of text to basically 2 sentences basically to indicate that if you use a named graph here, then you may assume that the payload of the observed is in the named graph. So this helps consumers to then say, so if in an LDES client I notice that the named graph is used, I can actually understand that metadata is separated from the data itself through a named graph. This was a big feature request. Yeah.
Yeah, Julian still had a question on the previous topic, I think.
Really?
Yes, I wanted to raise a point. So because something that I have been thinking now that I see, can you go back? Yeah, all the version paths and objects that we are now introducing with the delete, create, update. I'm not sure if this is something that should be defined by the LDES specification, because although we could use them further on in a downstream pipeline to update a certain triple store, for example, and so forth, the LDES client itself is not going to do anything with this.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's why I used the terms consumer oriented, because because on the one hand the client needs to implement something, but it needs to pass on certain context information to the next process.
But shouldn't that context information be explicit in the semantic modeling of whatever it's been defined in the events or the members themselves? I mean, I guess probably that should be the responsibility of whoever manages the data of the vocabulary. But my only problem with this right now is that it starts becoming a lot of new terms that start piling up, and it becomes a bit complex and confusing, perhaps for implementers. So I would like to keep it as slimmer as possible and actually define things that the client actually is going to use. Because these terms, perhaps the client is not going to act upon them. He just pass them along. So I don't know if it should be in the specification at all.
But you were one of the biggest. You were one of the biggest proponents of transactions.
I started defining them because I needed them in the pipeline building, but I'm not sure if this is the right place. So I would like to hear perhaps other opinions if there are some.
Well, I see mostly the biggest value comes if we have proper enveloping, so we can have these triples as part of something in the the context data, if it is part of the context. So that is a concern that a server can pass this along as the context, because you cannot have, there is no such notion as an empty triple. I mean, you cannot revoke a triple otherwise without having to go into the domain itself. If you want to be able to have a system, two systems communicate, and you don't want to write code every time to know what a delete consists of, I find it quite to have a generic solution of being able to serialize any mutation over a graph over LDES and then project it again and have the identical graph replicated, then we need the notion of deletes in LDES, I think, to just be able to have a default way of, or a way to kind of serialize this.
Okay, just to be clear, the transactions part I am fully in favor of. Just the delete, the CRUD operations is like I'm not entirely sure, because then I could always argue that that should be part of your vocabulary, maybe. But in the same,
I think also the CRUD was also triggered by something from you as well, in the sense that you build a processor from LDES to Sparkle queries, basically, so that you could ingest an LDES into Sparkle endpoint, and then you each time wanted to have a trigger whether you wanted to create or update something in the triple store. And when there's a create, you have far less work because you don't need to remove and look for the triples that you need to remove, right?
Well, in that case, what I had is that my domain objects, my vocabulary, were already containing some indication of whether what something was an update or something was a deletion, and then on that processor, on that function, I specified, look, you can look for those values in these terms. Mm-hmm. But the LDES client was completely oblivious of this, because the LDES client was not interested whether this is an update, a create, or a delete. That's that's my argument here.
That was always also my argument in the past, but then also LDES needs to become usable and needs to be and people started saying that LDES is not something for doing event sourcing, for example. I remember the talk of Mark van Andelen in one of our community sessions, in which he said, "Oh, look, but there's not even a standardized way to indicate whether something was created, updated, or deleted." I always was a big proponent of not defining deletes in LDES in the past, but this is also now something I think, okay, there is actually value in doing that, because there's 90% of the use cases require being able to process deletions, so we better be specific about it. While if we then just let the ecosystem of people who use LDES then decide how they are going to do transactions separately, it's going to be it might need that little bit more of standardization there, and I think that little bit more of standardization is what we're doing here, and we're making it explicit thanks to the paths, but we're also making it still offer sufficient freedom to use the vocabularies and the terms that you want, by making sure that we have these parts that just refer to how we can interpret.
Yeah, I agree on that, and I just wanted to raise the discussion because I can also see the other end of my argument, where I could say, yeah, I want to keep my vocabulary only interested on the domain itself, not on the life cycle of the data, and I don't want to blow up my vocabulary with those semantics. And if LDES can provide those semantics, well, that's great. So yeah, but I just wanted to raise it up here and see different opinions. But I see that it goes into let's take them, so I can live with that.
It feels for me, you bringing that point feels like the tables reversed for the past couple of years.
I think you should probably keep it. I agree with Julian. If you know about your source and your destination system, if they share the vocabulary and they share the knowledge of the models, then you're right. Then it's easy. But I think if we're looking at interoperability, if we're thinking about, okay, how can you have some kind of a disconnection between your source and your destination system, then this kind of information can be used in a generic way to do updates and whatever you need to do on a data set. So there is value. There is value in that situation. So I would keep them, but I would definitely make them not make them mandatory. Make them optional, and make sure that people can use them if they need to use them for some generic system.
Yeah. So that's indeed the idea. Yeah.
But I have a different question on transactions. Sorry to
go ahead.
To interrupt a little bit. I was thinking, this is great, and actually I was triggered by Avner, who said, I want to know if there are multiple transactions ongoing and stuff like that. And I was thinking, okay, transactions, that's great. We need that. But I was thinking, okay, if you have a repartitioning of your data, or you have a different partitioning of your data, this could be really confusing, because it depends on how you walk your tree. You will get a certain member before another one. And you might bump into this transaction ended flag before actually the transaction was ended. And by that I mean that the purpose of transactions can only be guaranteed, and the sensibility of them can only be guaranteed if you have a stream. And by stream I mean if you have a stream that you follow while it's ongoing, and not some repartitioning of some data set, because in a data set there's no order. So the point I'm trying to make is, this is great, but we have to be careful, because in certain fragmentations, just to call them that way, this will be senseless. This will be pointless.
Yeah. So that's indeed, of course, important that with transactions, we need to make sure that we also have a timestamp path defined, so that the chronological order is defined there. And we have another discussion on timestamp path later in the presentation.
I agree.
Maybe also to address Janko's concern, the transactional semantics would only hold on the what we defined as the event source, not for partition data, because then, well, it becomes almost impossible for a client to.
That was indeed what I was also thinking. I mean, it's only, I didn't want to use the term event source, but indeed it is only applicable to the event source, because in the other fragmentations, well, in any fragmentation, there is no notion of an order. That is, there's no notion. Let me rephrase that. There's no guarantee that your LDES client will actually read the members in the correct order in order to correctly assume transactions, correctly interpret these transactions.
Yeah. Well, so the condition indeed for transactions to work is that an LDES client has a chronological or follows the chronological order of the event stream, of course.
Yeah. It's something we have to really stress in the specification, I think, with respect to the transactions, because otherwise people will get confused.
Yeah, I'll just add it as a quick note here.
That's something that when we implemented, or when I was piloting this transaction notion in the LDES client, in our implementation, we have the option to give the client to indicate whether we want the extraction of members to happen in a descending or in an ascending order, to follow the different fragmentation structure to accomplish that. And if, for example, a certain fragmentation structure, it doesn't allow for a good descending extraction, because perhaps the first page you encounter is the newest page, and then you have to go all the way back to the beginning. The client even waits until it goes and it finds the first page and before it starts emitting members. But when the transaction was implemented, what we did was to say, okay, if you are going to follow transactions, you must always do the emission in a distinct way, no matter what you encounter. No matter if you say that your order is ascending, no, then it doesn't work.
Yeah, but that requires buffering, and you have to be really careful about that, because you need to buffer your members before you can actually emit them downstream. It's pretty scary, but okay.
Good. Yeah, that's everything about transactions at this moment.
There's a comment from Alf in this chat.
Yeah, on CRDTs. So that's conflict-free replication data types. Very proud that I actually know that. It's an idea that is CRDTs are basically when multiple systems collaborate on one source. Think about a collaborative notepad or something like that. That you need to be able to know if conflicts, whether conflicts could appear, and you need to have a strategy on which right will win, basically. So there are different kind of which right will win strategies there. Basically, for within LDES, we have one very specific approach, and it's the last right always wins, because we have one source, and it's the last right based on the chronological order will win in that sense. Although we also have, and this is coming, a request for out of order, so that you wouldn't have the last right wins based on the chronological order, but that you would be able to indicate a version identifier there. There are more hands raised. Maybe Elf, you want to first say something about CRDTs, or?
Yes, very quickly. So I recall that the approach implemented in NextGraph, I believe, that's why I found the link to the paper, is somehow working on causalities. I think the operation indicates the previous one, so kind of it's not based on the timestamps, but it's kind of a bit of a chain of the causality. But I don't remember all the details, but I think it was a approach that was not depending on some kind of logical clock, but more of a causality between different events. But I don't remember the details, so that's why I just pointed to the paper, but I'm not an expert in that, unfortunately.
Yeah, me neither, but there's a community group at the W3C called CRDTs for RDF that might be interesting to see the outcomes of that, and then maybe consider whether we want to integrate with that in LDES as well. But I would await the results from that group. That's fine. Then Sander, maybe?
Yes, I was just, I think for now, because CRDTs are very convenient if you have multiple agents committing to a shared resource. I mean, making updates to a resource. I think in our case, we can keep this concern out of the specification and just say, okay, whatever conflict resolution has to happen before you serialize something as an LDES stream. We could even say, okay, all transactions should be linearized before they are being offered as an LDES. I don't think it's that. It can be a server concern, an LDES server concern to linearize transactions and kind of deal with it before. It's already. I think we already take on enough difficult things. I think heading into this multi-writer, I mean, because
exactly. It's and we don't specify the right. We don't specify how to write to an LDES. That's up for a backend system to arrange. Yeah, that's true. Good. In the pull request 73. There is, and last time there were people saying, I don't remember who exactly said it, but who would love to have a preview on it. So now you can actually listen, and now there's actually a PDF document attached, which includes the previewed version of that indicates all these changes right now. I added these changes in a section context information because it's, as Julian also said, it's not something that a client must act upon, but it's something that a client must must pass on and make available in some way to a next processor in the pipeline. So it's important for consumers in that sense, and not per se for the client. So that's why we say that a client must have a way to make available context information to processors further down the pipeline set up by a consumer. And then we talk about these versions and transactions, where you will just see these things again: version of path, version delete object, and so on. They're also added in the vocabulary at that point. We also introduced transactions, and we also introduced transactions over here. We may want to make an important note of this chronological order that Ranko also mentioned. Good, and then this is the line on the fact that we have that the named graph can also serve as the payload. And then we move to 3.2, which is about a rework of the retention policies, something for which I have more slides. So for now, we've been talking through the changes that I've added in 3.1 over here, or the text that I've added in 3.1. And I also changed this line already a little bit because I was not happy with first IRI over here. So this already changed a little bit in the pull request. Good. So there's a pull request which now already contains some conflicts, of course, because we had the other thing merged, and this will require some work to fix. So I won't be able to push the merge conflict button, merge button live in this call. But we'll do that then afterwards if it gets accepted. But in this pull request at the same time with this transactions and versioning, what we also revisited was retention policies over here. So let's dive into retention policies. I reused a lot of slides from last time, so I hope that we can go across faster. But the biggest comment from last week was from last workshop was the fact that we proposed to remove the existing retention policies and replace them by one new design of a retention policy that would be more powerful. Today, I actually don't suggest anymore to do a breaking change, but I propose to do a backwards compatible change by still leaving the existing retention policies in the spec. Good. So these are the retention policies as described today. I did the effort of actually making sure that they're well explained. So we have 3 retention policies and not 4 as I put in the spec earlier. At this moment, we have the duration ago policy, which is basically a sliding window based on the duration. So you can say I keep all the data for 1 day, for example. Then another one is the point in time policy. The basic idea there is you start today with replicating an LDES, and I want to republish that LDES. And you basically want to say like, but I didn't copy all the history. I just started building up my my history at TI, and you want to say that, so that's your retention policy. I keep all data from that point on. And then we also have a latest version subset, which allows you to keep a certain amount of latest versions of the entities, for which, of course, the version-based semantics that we just discussed are also very important. We want to be able to understand. Whether what a version specifically means and how it is described. Good. So these 3 things were a little bit, they had some limitations as well. But the main reasons why you would actually document the retention policy is, of course, on the server you don't want to keep everything, and you want to make it transparent to the consumer. Why? Because of course for until now it was always manual source selection. So a person would be able to understand, this is a version that has an archive of 1 year of data, and this is a view that has 1 hour only of data. I'll select the 1 year in order to get the full history there. Or the history for a year at least. So you would be able to balance retention policies in when picking the right view there. But also really important is, of course, that if you only have 1 hour of data and then you decide to only synchronize each day, that will be a conflict, right? Because if you want to only check for updates each day, well, you will have lost 23 hours of data if the retention policy is only 1 hour. So that kind of sanity checks. This is something why certainly the retention policy needs to be transparent to the consumers. But we quickly saw that we needed more complex retention policies. Certainly in DKTP feeds, for example, what did we see with data catalogs is the fact that the data catalogs, they do want to keep the latest the latest version of a certain data set, of a certain distribution, and so on. However, they don't want to keep indefinitely that they removed something. And this is the same thing in IIIF change discovery for cultural heritage, for example, that they also put retention policies on there only for their deletions, basically. So they said, the deletions, we're not going to keep them, or we are going to keep them for a certain duration of time, for example. And then also the need came for but can't we have like composite retention policies? Because we wanted to combine multiple together, but the thing is that that was not foolproof. You could make intersections that do not make sense, and from the moment that you make intersections, you're using you're getting into set semantics and in more complex logic operations that are not always as intuitive for the end user than you would think. So this would be prone to mistakes that actually would not make sense, but still they're there. Then also there was a big need, or like the only needs, in fact, that I've seen with retention policies in LDES was the main use case of log compaction, as brought up by Sander as well. I have a slide on what log compaction is on the next slide there. And then there's also like a question about what do you do with transaction boundaries in these retention policies.
Peter, are you sharing your slides? Because we're still on the GitHub.
Yes. Okay. Rookie mistake here. Yeah. So the slides I showed was I showed this nice image indeed. Then said that more complex things were needed, and then I showed over here the fact that in Kafka you have this idea of log compaction, which is a nice nice idea in which you say like, for this is my log head in which I promise to keep everything. I keep to have a full log until this point. From this point on, I'll only keep the latest versions of things. And I'll only keep the latest versions, but if it's a delete, I'll start removing my deletes from this point. So in fact, there's a really good example of how you can make sure that still you can get the latest state of the data set from this kind of retention policy, basically, and it probably combines it makes a combination of all the retention policies in the way that it makes sense. So we mainly wanted to make sure that we can handle the use cases that are possible with log compaction over here when we started designing the new design of retention policies. So the idea is that if you define no retention policy, it just defaults to saying I keep everything always. So this is a default tree collection ID as well. that in a view you can find all the members of your collection. So the same thing in the event stream here. However, if you define on your view that a retention policy, and that retention policy just is has no additional properties to it, you actually assume that that you keep nothing. So this is how you say that you keep nothing of a stream. Of course, it's quite useless. So you better start indicating things. And then we have a couple of properties that you can that we propose here, and we only propose to just use one retention policy anymore over here. And over here, the use case could be that you're an archiver, and you archive a certain event source, but you only have the latest 1 hour of data. But then from the start of that 1 hour, you could say that, look, I have now an archived version of this same LDES that started from this this point, and now I will keep a full log of this of this thing. So that can be achieved with LDES starting from with that property. And then there's also the opposite. So you have the so your last member was published, and then you basically want to indicate, okay, now nothing is kept, but for about 1 hour, for example, I want to keep all the data in my view, and this will be a sliding window as time progresses, or as members get added over here. So yeah, and this is what you would do with the property LDES full log duration over here. Yeah. And here there's a question, is the question of how do we define T now? And I already hinted a little bit at it. You could say the current time, or you could say the timestamp of the last member. I think these are the two options over here. The current time is already difficult with regards to clock synchronization as well. And yeah, I'm more leaning towards the timestamp of the last member. That is a much better idea to look at, because this way, for example, a stream that just stopped 1 year ago with a full log duration of 1 year will still contain 1 year of data. And I think that's the interpretation that makes most sense. Are there any comments about T now, about this way of seeing it?
Well, I think the only drawback of having the last member as the definition of now is that for those historical data sets, you will never be able to compact the last part of the data while it's if you stop writing data to the LDES, the application of the compaction would not apply to the last time, while clients have already read all the. I mean, it would make sense to compact it further down to the more or less down to the state at some point that you only have the data set without any changes in the end. You would just compact it down. So there is a bit of yeah, I see how the clock sync thing, but then is it really that big of an issue nowadays?
I also wanted to comment on this idea. I see why you would use the timestamp of the last member, but on the other hand, there's already synchronization issue, I want to call it. But suppose you have a server that clears the log once a day, because it's a bad job at night, whatever. Then your definition of your sliding window is at least this much of duration. Yeah. So if it's 5 hours, that means there will be at least 5 hours of data in there, and that's the promise the server gives to the client. And then I'm wondering if that's the case, the at least amount. Then I wonder whether time synchronization is a big issue. I mean, how much will the time be off? I mean, you're not going to say, I want to keep data for 2 seconds. it's not something you're gonna do in theory. It's possible, but in practice you won't do that. I mean, you will say, you know, a week, a month, a day. You will say something like that. So in that case, I think the issue of clock synchronization is a lesser one.
Yeah, true.
I would keep the notion of current time being the current time, approximately the current time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's good enough. Let's put it that way. I see no use case for an exact synchronized clock.
Yeah. Okay. But and apart from the what about this last use case over here? A stream that stopped 1 year ago that will still contain 1 year of data. Yeah.
Well, your view will not contain any data, and that's per definition. I mean, if you say I'm going to keep 1 month of data and the thing stopped a year ago, well, you have no data. That's obvious. So I wouldn't do this, honestly. I see no reason. I mean, if you want to have 1 year of data, you create another view that has 1 year of data, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And by that I mean, you set it, you know when your thing's going to stop, or it's a historical data set, for example. If it's a historical data set, yeah, well, you don't need a retention period because the thing will not grow. I mean, why do we do this? Why do we do retention? Is to keep your storage cost low, to keep it manageable. So if the thing stopped, it is manageable. So I see no reason why you would have this use case then. I mean, it's kind of contradictory. If you have a historical data set, you want to keep it completely. You don't put any retention on it. If you have something which is a real event stream, which will continue creating members, and you have to keep your storage costs under control, so you want to have a sliding window of amount of members, well, in that case, if it's a sliding window, the thing stops, everything's gone. No problem.
Yeah.
My 2 cents.
Okay, I'm convinced. Any other thoughts about this?
Yeah, maybe I was thinking maybe we could make it like an implementation note that the client can look at the date header, or to avoid any shifts in time. I mean, to resolve the time synchronization problem.
Yeah. Also a very good suggestion.
Yeah, good suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the server primer, we should then include that server should set the date header. But yeah, I mean that also
you should set that anyhow. Should set that anyhow for the not immutable, but for the max age. I mean, you have to do that anyhow.
The max age is second based, so you don't.
No, but I mean, I don't know what the HTTP header is, but there's a header that says the created time of timestamp of this of the response. I'm guessing that Sander is hinting to that one. Sander?
Oh no, there's a date header as well, but indeed, yeah, it's also used for caching, indeed. But that's more the HTTP 1.0 caching, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe, yeah, I should dust off my HTTP knowledge there. Yeah. Good. Yeah, I'm just thinking on still about one thing that was said, like maybe you don't want to do the 2 seconds retention policy. Are we sure we're not going to go there? Like, is this certainly not yeah? But yeah, that's
maybe we should not limit the use cases, but on the other hand, what's the what's the use of having a very small retention period?
Yeah, and probably you would reside to other solutions then. If you have a retention period of that long, probably you would go to pub subsystems and things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So So that's that. I'll need to adapt the pull request in this this direction, but happy to do that. Then we continue towards introducing that. Okay, now you can actually combine both properties as well. There's actually only one interpretation here that makes sense, so we'll just specify it in the way that it makes sense. In the sense that if you have a starting from over here and then a full log duration over here, then basically you don't want these added, because of the starting from says I keep everything after the starting from the starting from. But of course, with the full log duration, you basically say I keep the full log for this duration, and starting from is ignored in that sense. Except, however, if there's an overlap, if you just started out, then so if this is a little bit shifted to the right or to the left over here, then you will then of course the full log window will be shorter due because of the starting from over here. Good. Can the starting from be in the future? Ranko, you always with your.
Sorry.
No, it's a good remark. Can you elaborate? Like.
Well, I was thinking. I mean, I was looking at the starting from and the full log window. I was thinking, what if the starting from was past T now, or maybe somewhere in the middle of T now minus the full log. Well, in that case, I guess your window would be the lesser of the two.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So if it's over here, then you actually only keep keep this this
the
amount.
Last 6 elements, right? And then I was thinking, what if I put it in the future? I mean, I'm an annoying developer, I know, but I put it in the future. What's going to happen, right? So
if you keep it in the future, it's, I mean, and you don't combine it with a full log duration, but you put this. If you put it in the future, then you will keep nothing. Yeah, that seems
until that time arrives. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we have to. It's a good point, and let's put it in the spec that all members are dropped until that point of time, because it's better to specify it, and that way you could have something like a client that pays for having data for a short period of time that is derived from something. That way you could set it up and have them get their data, sensor data for a small, I don't know, event or something.
Yeah. And Arne, I don't think it's contradicting, but complementary in that sense that you the use case, for example, as an archiver of a reuser of a certain event stream that already at the source has a retention policy of 1 hour, for example, and you want to keep 1 year of data, but during that year you won't have data from last year because you don't have access to that data anymore. So that's basically the use case that still makes sense, and that we want to make transparent to the end user. Yeah. Good. And then we have a discussion on transaction boundaries. And I might be wrong again, so that's why I put discussion question mark, of course. But the question is, if I put a full log window there, and if I have something that started a transaction over here, and the transaction is only ended somewhere in the middle of this full log window, should I also still include these transaction entities? Should this full log window be allowed to break the transaction boundaries, or should it always be transaction aware?
That is an annoying one, huh?
It's an annoying one, yeah.
On the one hand, you want to have transactionality, but on the other hand, that might force you to look at the logic, to look at these things. Annoying. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's also what Arne maybe said. Everybody should avoid long-running transactions anyway. Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Matthias here.
Matthias, hi.
Hi. We were discussing just a couple of days ago the potential of having references between dataset to distribution to a data service to a dataset, the same dataset. So we have loops, which means that they are references, and some systems don't like dangling references. There is no way of not causing references to be dangling, and having them inside of one transaction is perhaps a way of at least indicating that, well, you should do this together. So in that case, if you don't have that in the log, you will cause, I guess, dangling references.
So which is your argumentation to still respect the transaction boundaries, right?
To respect the transaction boundaries and only drop entire transactions when they are entirely outside of the log window.
Yeah. Yeah, and then what Arne said is, well, they need to keep it short anyway. So yeah, so this can actually also support your case in which you say, well, just respect these boundaries. Yeah. Okay. The point with a full log window is I can understand why you would indeed say, okay, we do want to respect it. However, the next kind of retention policies that are coming up as well will be about version based. Then if you say like I keep the last version, but then you do you then also keep respecting the transaction boundaries? I will maybe first introduce this. So
yeah, please.
Wait. And it's a server that must respect it probably, but good. I'll copy paste this to a little bit later, so so that we sure come back to this. Yeah, the version-based retention policies are basically saying, not based on duration in this case, but it's just the fact that I want to keep the last version of an entity, basically. Yeah. So you basically just indicate that using one property. Then you could also indicate using version delete durations that you want to remove the old removals of it, which is a use case in DKTP feeds, for example, in which you have a data portal from 5 years that is already running for 5 years, and in the beginning 5 years ago you once made a test data set as the first data set, and you immediately removed it again because it was not useful. Well, in a latest version subset, you would actually, with the version mount 1, you would always have to keep that delete in your stream forever, which is of course just clutter. It just keeps consuming space in all the consumers' systems. Instead, what do we propose is that specifically for the deletes, we will only keep them for a certain window of time, but for the other last versions, we'll keep them indefinitely, so that if you want to replicate the latest state, you can still do that with this feed. You can get the last state of all the entities over here. But the deletions will only be kept for this amount of time. So when you're synchronizing, you will need to synchronize with in intervals that are lower than this version delete duration. Right. And now we can ask the same question. Does this need to support transaction boundaries? Because, of course, in a transaction, if you first... I can imagine transactions in which we still have a in which we have a create, a delete of something, and then yeah, like it could be that some that information of a latest version is still in a transaction, but in that same transaction we created something and it was deleted afterwards, but that create still will remain in it because we have that retention policy on the latest version that needs to respect transactions, right? Do you get my problem here? So it could be that in one transaction you created something, and in another transaction you deleted something. Yeah, long transactions must be avoided. Yeah.
But what is
Yes,
why is this a problem if you have two different transactions? The first transaction.
Because it could be that if the last version forces me to keep keep a certain create, but in another transaction the delete can be removed. That means that in the feed I will find the create, but I won't find the delete anymore because that one could so then I have a completely wrong view of the latest sequence.
I want to maybe ask the question: should we support anything else than linearized transactions? So should we even support interleaf transactions? And then maybe a second question: if the transactions come from an upstream system, they are atomic, and we could because we have the next issue is about the timestamp path discussion, and then if there would happen, I mean, it would be an atomic event anyway, so the problem won't arise as much because in the time policy it is considered one instant. So if we have atomicity on the transaction commit, the question is, should we allow a sort of change data capture transformation into LDES without any processing in between to have these kind of transactions? I mean, or is LDES more a protocol to sync graphs, not really to yeah, it depends. I mean, how you look at LDES, but if we see it as a publication protocol,
well, I would certainly not look at LDES as just a way to sync graphs, because then I think you can think of way more efficient ways to do that using triple patches or something like that. If you just have the idea of so I do think of it as describing the changes in a system, whether it's a data catalog or whether it's a cultural heritage system or whether it's a railway infrastructure database. So that's so you have the general idea of changes there, I think. And Julian in the chat is saying that I can think of a scenario where interleaved transactions could happen, which I also believe that would become very hard to convince server administrators of that they cannot do interleaved transactions, or it would be very counterintuitive as well. So I think even if you would include it in the spec that servers cannot interleave their transactions, I think still it would happen.
That's a stupid question.
Yeah.
A really stupid question, I think. I'm trying to get my head around this. Retention policies, to my knowledge, apply to views, right?
Yeah.
Transactions, we said earlier, apply to the event source.
Correct.
The event source is not a view.
The event stream, yeah.
Event stream, yeah, event stream. No, event source.
Event source is a view.
That's the default view.
That's the default view, yeah.
Trying to get my head around this, because I was thinking if transactions only apply to the event source, and the event source is not a view, but you say it's a view, okay. It's a view from where all views are derived, right? because I was thinking in the case of irregular views, there's the notion of transaction doesn't stand. It's pointless because it's just a partitioning of your data set in a different way. So transactions would not be applicable in that case, I think.
But even if you fragment the data set geospatially, when it's an LDES, you will still have at a certain moment you will come into you will then have multiple things that still will be getting updates, right? So you still have the chronological aspect as well, even if you fragment it differently. So I do think it still makes sense in different views other than the event source. Yeah.
Okay, I say it was a stupid question. Okay, cool. Continue, please.
Maybe I can continue with the stupid questions then, because I feel I'm confused right now. When you go to the feed and you have a latest version, latest retention, what is it called? Latest version retention policy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if I get it, and then 1 year later I get it again, and this initial data set, the test data set, will it be there 1 year later, both created and deleted? If you don't have the version deleted duration, it will be there, right?
Yeah.
Both the creation and the deletion.
So if it's the latest version, no, only the delete will be there. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Great. So that means that the actual the feed need to be regenerated or generated more lively. I mean, for me, I'm doing the implementation, and for me, I'm generating the feed once more or less.
Yeah.
And updating it very seldomly with new information, or actually every night, but I don't with new relations. So I'm just thinking, maybe this is not possible then, because if something is deleted, I need to go back and remove it from an earlier relation. Isn't it called relation? Yes.
You don't need to do it. I don't get the question. Yeah.
I'm just saying that version delete duration, must that not be combined with latest log whatever that the other retention policy was called, and always have the version delete duration shorter than the other one? That's my question, basically. Which was your initial question? Do we have to combine the two to make sure that one is shorter, that the version latent duration is shorter than the other one? But maybe this is two different retention policies, and we don't have to combine them at all.
Yeah, but I will propose over here like the combined version with the full log and with the versioned window, and then the over here we only keep the timestamps anymore, and this also becomes possible by just combining them over here. But my main issue here is with transactions, like the combination with transactions at this point.
Mm-hmm.
becomes very tedious. So I think over here with the transactions over here, I think it made sense with a full log window to respect the transaction boundaries, because that way you can that will help you to get
consistent state.
Yeah, consistent state indeed. Because otherwise there will be things over here that do not make sense or cannot help you any further anyway. But with versions, I do not think that they must take into account that from this moment on we have a problem. Yeah, I will need to do some more thinking about this and explain it in a better way, what the problem is, and also what the solutions could be. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we have a big problem with this. I mean, I think the safest would be take the latest take the timestamp of the latest member. Take the timestamp of the transaction final member, and use this for the whole as the timestamp for all the members to apply them. Then that way you keep the transactionality aspect. Yeah. And I mean, it should be seconds at most anyway. The transaction duration, I mean, the difference between the start and the completion of the transaction should be seconds at most, I suppose. I mean, it should be a very short period that you enter data in one.
Yeah, I find this is dangerous. Like the assumption that it will be short. Yeah, I will take, because in the interest of time as well, I will take this towards this discussion towards the issue, and I will involve the ones that were also. I mean, everyone can follow the issue as well, and make sure that we have a good answer on or the pull request at least, and discuss what we will do with transactions over here, because that's it doesn't seem to be solved yet. We'll try to make some better illustrations here of where it can go wrong. Good. And then, how do you know what a deletion is in the retention policies? That's thanks to the transactions over here. And then over here, the final picture almost over here, where we actually implement full lock compaction over here, where you can say, we first keep all the everything until for 1 hour, for example. Then we keep or deletions we keep for another day or something, and then the rest we keep for we will just keep the last version of things for the rest of the time. Good. And just for completeness sake, I also introduced the term the version duration over here, just to be able to make sure that not entirely sure what the use case would be here. Although for sensor readings it would make sense, or what Arne also says, if the intention of the stream is to just process events, then this could maybe make sense as well, to also limit the time in general here. Good. And then for completeness sake, I also introduced then the complete picture, where I also introduced or also add this starting from over here. I see a small so of course this one will not be this. Okay, so if we have starting from, then it looks like this. Good. That's all. I will remove this slide again because the only limitation I can still see with this proposal is that we don't have type-specific retention policies. So we just say you can have deletion-based retention policies, but you could not say I keep everything of a certain type, or maybe I keep all my oxygen readings for this long, but my water readings I keep them for this long. That would not be possible. I wonder if that's a limitation that we just want to say we accept this limitation, and if there's a exotic use case at some point that would come up, we then can extend the spec again. Or whether someone says, no, I really want this to end up in the spec as well, that this becomes a possibility. No, I'm also looking at Julian, because you have had a lot of mixed streams in the past as well.
Yeah, but I would argue if that is required somewhere, that the stream should be two separate streams that need to be handled or manage independently.
Yeah. And then and the question is, of course, where it would stop, because then you could almost implement a full Sparkle query to then indicate the conditions on which you are going to keep something, and then it becomes basically a querying problem. So that's it on transactions, versioning, and retention policy on the rework. I noted down a couple of things that I still need to do. So I think two big ones. One is still clear out transactions, and another big or small one rather is to make sure that T-now is really the approximate current time, and that you could look at the date header in the HTTP response to set it more accurately according to the server. If these two conditions are met, could I merge this pull request that is now at 73, which includes basically these things? And I see that while I was speaking, other people added some reviews. Okay, so we'll also add these things.
Yeah, I raised 2 points there about transaction, and because we're saying that we are writing the specification from the client perspective. 2 important points that I think we could specify is about, we're talking about communicating context information towards downstream processors from the client. So how that can happen, like the triples of the metadata triples or quads, is that something that would be the output together with the member triples, or that should be happening in a different interface? Also, what the other point is about what needs to be the client behavior in the presence of a transaction. If it encounters that the transaction has started, shall it continue just emitting members and delegate the responsibility of processing that transaction as such to whatever comes next, or should it halt until it has and start buffering until it has everything that belongs to the transaction to output it when it's finished?
Yeah, I don't think that should be client functionality, the buffering.
In my experience, that needed to happen somewhere, so that could also be, we can say it's out of the scope for the LDES client, but
yeah. Okay. But I see this pull request still sparks some discussion. So let's clear out these things. And I propose that we keep it for that we do a reiteration on this with Julian, Xueying, with Ranko, maybe other people also want to be involved. That we do that asynchronously, so that we discuss it in the issue itself. That we then, as the first item on Working Group 3, that we then present the changes that we've done, how we solved the issue of the transactions, how we added the idea of the date time as well, and that we then check as first thing in the third workshop whether we can merge this pull request. Good. All right, so I'm at least happy that it's not a full reject, because I've put some love in this. Yes, okay. Good, and then it's 10 minutes left, and I still had some discussions on ongoing things. I propose that we also keep the discussions that I just present the discussion item, and that we keep the discussions for online itself. So please comment on the issues, because no pull request is open for these yet. Although there is a concrete proposal to work on this. The timestamp path. There are 3 reasons for a timestamp.
You're not seeing the slides.
Yeah. Rookie mistake again. Okay. I should or just start sharing my entire screen instead. Okay, but timestamp path. There are three different reasons for referencing a timestamp. I think one is knowing the chronological order of your thing, so knowing what property will increment over time, and that way when you replay it, like for the case of transactions, you know what property to use in order to know the order of things, so that you know when a transaction will have ended. For example, one of the use cases there. It's also a potential hint to know for certain that certain subtree are not going to contain any updates again. So that you can just flag an entire thing as, okay, this is an immutable subtree, but more on that as well in a later slide. Second reason is knowing what property decides the version order, and yeah, we already had the discussion on the CRDTs, but in the same way, you could say, my stream is updating according to a timestamp path, but my versions are actually out of order. It's a little bit annoying, but you actually need to. But I have multiple systems writing into my stream, and somehow my version order got mixed up. So we also want to support that. So this is something that we want over there. Now, of course, the timestamp is also important for retention policies, to know whether what does it mean a couple of one year ago. Yeah, okay, on what timestamp is it? So that's something that we need.
Yeah. Aren't you missing a fourth one, being the value to use when deciding to prune the tree? In other words, the relationships greater than or less than?
Yeah, so that's what I meant with 1B here.
Oh, that's 1B. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Peter, I don't understand why you say that the order. It seems to me that you are interpreted the order of the feed as JSON or something where there is no order, and not as RDF where there is no order.
I mean the chronological order, in which I mean how it will. So at one time you're looking at the feed, and then a second time you're looking at the feed, and things were added. So the order is, okay, these things were added, and somehow when we want to replay it, we want to keep the same order as the order in which things were added to the event stream. In that sense, in one page you indeed don't have an order in RDF, but of course there's the order in the fact that if you have a chronological search tree, then of course there's the order in following the relations, and then from the moment that you constructed your members again, you can also in memory order these members to follow the chronological order of the search tree.
Within one page, you will get maybe 10 members, and they will be unordered.
But the idea with the timestamp path is that you can order them again on this property.
Yeah. But I'm arguing that the argument here is not valid within one page. I didn't understand it first.
Yeah, so that's in one page it's indeed not valid. It's mainly the idea of, okay, we have a search tree, so we add something in the page that is flagged to be more recent in that sense.
Okay.
But a good point. Yeah. So what's in the spec today? I screenshotted what we put in the spec today. This is the fact that timestamp path points at a datetime literal, and that defines the chronological order in that sense. Implicit is that we also, of course, have the idea of latest version, and at this moment we implicitly assume that the next version will follow the chronological order over here. It might be that we don't have a property that points at the chronological order, or it might also be that our chronological order is not equal to our version order. So this is basically something that will this I think is 2A, I think, this case. But other limitations could be that, so if you have a timestamp, it could be that you have 20 things that happened at the same time, and we want to make sure that that we that we still can provide order if 20 things happened at the same time. Might be that we also want that at some point. So we have a proposal at this moment to make sure that all these limitations are gone by introducing a proposal of 3 extra properties that probably are going to used less, but if they are used, they're going to be able to solve these cases. A sequence path would point at a string or an integer that would still provide some order when of the sequence in the feed, basically. So for example, if no timestamp path is used, we could still use a sequence path globally across the LDES. If you already have a timestamp path and you have 20 things on the same timestamp, you could look at the sequence path to indicate like, okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we understand even the order there based on the sequence path. A second property would be the version timestamp path, in which you would be able to disambiguate the timestamp path to the chronological order of the feed, and then would say like, by default, the version timestamp path equals the timestamp path. But if you want to have a separate version timestamp path, then that's possible. Then you can point at this other thing. This would be possible. This would be useful for out of order streams, in which you would keep the prof generated at time or something of when it entered your server, but you have multiple agents writing into your system, and that can happen that these things are out of order then, so that you actually need a different timestamp for that. And maybe it's not a timestamp, maybe it's just an indication, version 1, version 2, version 3, and so on. So we also propose that you can use the version sequence path as an XSD string or XSD integer in that sense. Ranko, LDES sequence path is a increasing number of strings across all members. So if the timestamp path is set, it is an increasing value across the timestamps that happen at the same moment. And if timestamp path is not set, it is across all members. That was the idea.
Oh, okay. So it's to disambiguate. Why not make it always across all members? What would be the benefit of having it per version timestamp if that is defined?
I was mainly thinking about how people are going to use it, and I can imagine that that people start renumbering or start redoing it from the moment that they said, I have a transaction here of 20 things, and all these 20 things happen at the same time, but I still want to provide order in here for just this scope. So I'm going to use the sequence path to just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 until 20. Yeah.
That's exactly what we need. Thank you.
Matthias, you say you need it per transaction.
Not necessarily per transaction, but whenever we have a couple of members that comes in at the same timestamp, we need to make sure that some of them are treated before the others. So we will probably check whenever 2 things that we know are. For instance, we need to add distribution for a data set before we add. We need to add a data set before we add the distributions, and we know that we can search them out, and then they will be unfortunately the same timestamp. So then we will distinguish with the sequence path, and we will do that start from scratch every time we find that we need to do it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I see. Yeah.
Do we need to have a sequence path? If we set the sequence path and it's not provided on the individual members, is that fine?
Yes, I would try to design a solution here that makes it as easy as possible to design these things.
So then we add it only when needed to distinguish.
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Good. I see we have 1 minute left, so I'll just show you what else I had over here. I had some discussions on immutability of pages when you decide that. this is something that would be the input of something that we will certainly discuss in workshop 3 anyway. So it was already a teaser for workshop 3. And I had a discussion on when to refetch a tree node, which is also the idea to discuss that during workshop 3. And I had a new kind of proposal to provide in a page to be able to provide in the triples itself that a node that you have a time to live basically that is last modified at a certain date time, also to circumvent the problems with the fact that okay, it's cached and my time to live is still 20 minutes. Then yeah, okay, well, it brings some problems over here. That was it. Reminder of the communication channels. If you're not yet on our Matrix channel, please join. It's a great place to be, certainly with like-minded people like we are in this group. So please do join it. The discussions remain on the GitHub at this moment, and I hope to see you back for the 3rd workshop, where we are going to lead a lot more work still added on this merging pull request. I think we will be able to discuss a lot of pull requests on the 3rd workshop. At least that's the ambition. So let's see how far we get and how true this ambition will turn out in on the 3rd of July. Good. Is there anyone from the SEMIC team that still wanted to have a last word?
I just shared the link to the event for the 3rd working group session. If you click on it, there is an ICS file there. You can download it and drop it in your agenda, or you can make it yourself with the link already. It's useful. I know there are a few people that struggle with finding the links on the moment itself, but if you do it already today, then it's done for the 3rd. Voilà, that's it for my end. Sander, Natasha.
Yes, thank you all for joining and being this collaborative, because I think this is exactly the I know we went very deep into some of the things and the transactions and everything, but I think it's very important that we discuss this as well here in this working group, and that we don't keep this kind of, it might seem a bit that we go a bit far in this, but I think it's exactly what we need, just so that we have consensus and that everybody that we know what goes into a transaction, and I mean that it is very well defined. So I'm very happy with the outcome of today, and I hope everybody joins the 3rd working group as well, and please contribute to the GitHub issue as well, because more discussion will be needed there as well to move things forward. So thank you all, and we'll see each other next time.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.